I started having panic attacks.
At 79 years old, Goldie Hawn is a woman the world still remembers for her radiant laugh, her sparkling blue eyes, and that infectious energy that once made her America's eternal golden girl. But behind that dazzling smile is a story far darker than most fans ever realized. For decades, she was the Hollywood dream, winning Oscars, headlining blockbusters, and capturing hearts with her bubbly charm. Yet today, her life tells a much different tale. The fame, the family, the love, all of it came at a price that few could ever imagine. They called her the luckiest woman in Hollywood, the one who had it all. A thriving career, children who followed her path into stardom, and the kind of fairy tale romance with Kurt Russell that tabloids labeled as unbreakable. But the truth is far from picture perfect. Goldie's story is one of betrayal, heartbreak, and the painful reality of what happens when even the brightest stars begin to fade. Her relationship with her children has been marked by years of distance, bitterness, and accusations that have played out publicly in ways no mother could ever endure. Her past marriages ended in turmoil and betrayal, leaving scars that never truly healed. Even the love she found with Kurt Russell, though long-lasting, has not been without its shadows. Behind the curtain of Hollywood's most celebrated partnership are whispers of struggles, sacrifices, and quiet loneliness. And then there is her health. Once the vibrant dancer who could light up any room, Goldie has faced the cruel passage of time with quiet suffering. Rumors of memory struggles, the toll of aging, and the harsh reality of being forgotten in an industry that once worshipped her beauty and charm weigh heavily on her spirit. What makes her tragedy even more heartbreaking is the contrast. The world still clings to the image of the laughing, carefree star, while the woman herself hides pain few are willing to acknowledge. This is the untold side of Goldie Hawn, the side that reveals how the golden girl of Hollywood now finds herself fighting battles she never thought she'd face. Battles of family, love, and the inevitable loneliness of age. This isn't just a story about fame. It's a story about what happens when the spotlight fades, when the applause dies, and when the people who once stood closest to you become the ones who wound you deepest. At 79, Goldie Hawn's tragedy is beyond heartbreaking, and it's time the world knew the truth. Long before Hollywood's bright lights crowned her as its golden girl, Goldie Hawn was just a little girl growing up in Tacoma Park, Maryland, a child who carried far more weight on her shoulders than anyone realized. Born into a modest family, her mother was a strict, practical woman who ran a dance school, and her father, a band musician, was often away. On the surface, it was a normal upbringing. From the very beginning, she felt like she wasn't enough. Even as a child, she was consumed by insecurity about her looks. She didn't see herself as beautiful, not in the way the world would one day obsess over her. That trademark laugh, that glowing smile, they were learned defenses. Goldie grew up in an environment where perfection was demanded, where she had to mask her vulnerabilities with cheer, always performing, always trying to please. Dance became her escape. At just 3 years old, she was thrown into ballet lessons. The discipline was brutal. Goldie would later admit that while others saw her as a free spirit, behind closed doors she was breaking under the pressure. By her teenage years, she wasn't dreaming of Hollywood. She was dreaming of running away from expectations. But fate had other plans. She dropped out of college after a short time, chasing dance opportunities while struggling to survive. There were moments of desperation, even shame, when she questioned if she would ever be good enough, if the world would ever accept her for who she truly was. This fear of rejection would follow her for the rest of her life, in Hollywood, in love, and in family. Behind every giggle that later made her famous was a young woman masking deep-rooted pain. Her earliest struggle wasn't just about making it in show business. It was about convincing herself she was worthy of being loved at all. And maybe that's why Goldie would spend decades searching for validation, from audiences, from Hollywood executives, and most painfully, from the very people closest to her. The tragedy of Goldie Hawn doesn't begin in Hollywood. It begins here, in the quiet corners of her childhood, where the seeds of insecurity and heartbreak were first planted. Goldie Hawn's rise to stardom was nothing short of explosive, but it was also the beginning of the trap that would define much of her life. She didn't come into Hollywood with powerful connections or a famous name. She came in as a dancer, hustling from job to job, surviving on scraps of work and fleeting opportunities. But then came the show that changed everything. Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In. Audiences fell in love with her instantly. The wide eyes, the infectious giggle, the ditzy delivery. Goldie wasn't just funny, she was unforgettable. Overnight, she became America's sweetheart. But here's the dark truth. While the world adored her for playing the bubbly blonde, Goldie herself hated it. She knew she was smarter than the roles she was given, deeper than the caricature Hollywood demanded. And yet, every laugh, every silly dance, every dumb blonde punchline pushed her further into a box she couldn't escape. But then, Hollywood threw her a curveball. Cactus flower. Goldie, the TV comedienne no one took seriously, suddenly shocked the world by winning an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress in 1970. She was just 24 years old, and her win stunned. The girl who was seen as little more than a giggle machine was now holding the industry's most coveted prize. Behind the scenes, however, not everyone was happy. The whispers started. Was she really talented? Did she deserve it? Or was she just lucky? Co-stars grew jealous, directors underestimated her, and Hollywood executives decided they had found their perfect formula. Goldie the blonde bombshell, Goldie the lovable fool, Goldie the forever girl next door. And though the world thought she was on top of the world, the truth was far more complicated. Fame came at a price. Goldie couldn't walk into a room without being typecast, without being told to smile wider, laugh louder, and play the part America expected. Behind closed doors, she cried. She longed to be seen as serious, as intelligent, as more than a stereotype. But Hollywood wasn't interested in Goldie's depth. They were only interested in her image. The rise to stardom that should have been her triumph was also her prison. And as she navigated Hollywood's relentless expectations, Goldie found herself spiraling into a cycle of self-doubt, broken relationships, and a desperate search for something real. If Goldie Hawn's career was a roller coaster, her love life was a storm, filled with passion, betrayal, heartbreak, and scandal. For a woman who seemed to have it all, Goldie's most painful battles came not from Hollywood executives or jealous co-stars, but from the people she loved the most. Her first marriage was to dancer Gus Triconis. On the surface, it looked like a young love story, two dreamers chasing fame together. But behind closed doors, the marriage was cold, distant, and stifling. Goldie was exploding into stardom, while Gus's career stalled. The jealousy and imbalance tore them apart, and by the time she left him, Goldie was already learning one of Hollywood's harshest lessons. Sometimes success costs you love. Then came Bill Hudson, the man who would become the father of her children, Kate and Oliver. At first, it seemed like Goldie had finally found stability. They were a picture-perfect Hollywood couple, smiling for cameras, raising a family. But the truth? Their marriage was poisoned by betrayal, arguments, and mistrust. Bill accused Goldie of infidelity and Goldie accused Bill of neglect. The fights turned ugly, and when the marriage ended, it left scars that never healed. The ugliest fallout wasn't between Goldie and Bill. It was between Bill and the children. Oliver and Kate grew up resenting their father, publicly blasting him in interviews, while Goldie stood firmly by their side. But even this wasn't without drama. Bill Hudson later accused Goldie of turning his kids against him, calling her manipulative, claiming she destroyed their relationship. And perhaps most painfully, he once said that to him, Oliver and Kate were dead. Imagine the heartbreak for Goldie, a mother caught between a bitter ex-husband and children scarred for life. And yet, amid the chaos, there was Kurt Russell. To the world, Goldie and Kurt were Hollywood's greatest love story, the fairy tale couple who defied the odds, staying together for over 40 years without ever marrying. They were the dream, the perfect pair who laughed together, raised a blended family, and seemed untouchable. But even here, behind the smiles and the magazine covers, life wasn't always perfect. There were sacrifices. Kurt's career often took a back seat to Goldie's. There were whispers of tension, of struggles with raising a blended family, of moments when even their golden romance cracked under pressure. And though they projected unity, Goldie often admitted in interviews that love was hard work, harder than anyone knew. The irony is almost cruel. To the outside world, Goldie had the dream romance, but the woman behind the curtain knew heartbreak more intimately than love. Failed marriages, public betrayals, children caught in the middle, and a relationship that, despite its strength, carried the weight of sacrifice and struggle. Goldie Hawn may have lit up the screen with her laugh, but in love, she often found herself in tears. And as her children grew, the fractures in her personal life would only deepen, casting shadows over even her brightest days. Goldie Hawn may have been America's sweetheart on screen, but behind the camera, she was fighting battles most of Hollywood never wanted to talk about. Fame gave her power, but it also made her a target, and few stars escaped the claws of jealousy and backstabbing as much as Goldie did. From the early days of Laugh-In, whispers followed her. Some cast members resented the attention she got, claiming she wasn't the funniest or the most talented, just the prettiest blonde with a giggle. Behind closed doors, she was accused of playing dumb to get ahead, of charming directors and producers to secure bigger roles. It wasn't true, but in Hollywood, perception often mattered more than reality. Then came the films. For every co-star who adored working with her, there was another who didn't. Goldie had a reputation: strong-willed, outspoken, unwilling to be pushed around. And in an industry built on male power, that made her difficult. Directors who expected her to be obedient quickly realized Goldie wasn't afraid to challenge them. She wanted creative control. She demanded respect. She refused to let anyone box her into a stereotype. But Hollywood doesn't reward women who fight back. It punishes them. Rumors spread that she was hard to work with, that she let fame go to her head. Some actors resented her paychecks, others whispered she was overrated, and producers quietly blacklisted her from certain projects. Even when she proved herself as more than just an actress, when she stepped behind the camera to produce and develop films like Private Benjamin, Goldie was met with skepticism. A blonde comedienne running a production company. To Hollywood men, it was laughable. She had to claw her way through every deal, fight for every ounce of recognition. And then there were the personal feuds. Jealousy ran rampant. Actresses who couldn't stand her bubbly persona. Male co-stars who spread rumors when she rejected their advances. Even within Hollywood's inner circles, Goldie was often seen as an outsider, adored by audiences but quietly undermined by peers who didn't want her to shine too brightly. The most heartbreaking part? Goldie often hid the toll it took. While she laughed and sparkled on screen, behind closed doors she was exhausted, tired of proving herself, tired of being underestimated, tired of the constant whisper campaigns that threatened to undo everything she had built. For a woman who once symbolized joy, her career was anything but joyful. Hollywood gave her the world, but it also made her fight every single day to keep it. And though she smiled for the cameras, Goldie Hawn carried wounds that no spotlight could heal. For decades, Goldie Hawn was the eternal sunshine of Hollywood. Her laugh, her sparkle, her energy. She seemed untouchable, almost ageless. But time spares no one, not even America's golden girl. And as the years passed, the reality of aging brought with it a new chapter in Goldie's life. One filled not with applause and flashing lights, but with quiet struggles, painful whispers, and a loneliness she could never truly escape. By the late 1990s and early 2000s, roles began to dry up. Hollywood, cruel as ever, decided that Goldie was no longer the young, radiant star they wanted on screen. For an actress who had carried entire films on her shoulders, the sudden absence of opportunities was devastating. She faded from the silver screen, not because her talent disappeared, but because Hollywood's obsession with youth erased her. The emotional toll was heavy. For someone who lived to perform, to entertain, to feel the love of millions, stepping away felt like a slow death. She tried to keep herself busy with charities, projects, and family life, but the truth is, without the spotlight, Goldie struggled. Then came the whispers about her health. Paparazzi photos sparked rumors. Had Goldie lost weight? Was she struggling with memory problems? Was her once vibrant spirit dimming under the weight of time? The speculation grew louder when she disappeared for long stretches from public life. Fans who once saw her as unstoppable began asking the question no one wanted to face. Was Goldie okay? But perhaps the cruelest part of her later years wasn't just fading fame or fragile health. It was the loneliness. Despite her long partnership with Kurt Russell, despite her children's success, Goldie often found herself isolated. Her relationship with her son Oliver remained strained for years, and even with Kate by her side, there were moments where the distance between mother and children felt painful. Bill Hudson's bitter attacks in the press only reopened old wounds, making family reunions difficult. Imagine being a woman who gave everything to her career, who built her life around love and laughter, only to reach 79 and feel forgotten. By Hollywood, by fans who once adored her, even at times by the family she fought so hard for. That is the tragedy of Goldie Hawn. The woman who once made the world laugh now fights silent battles against time, against her own body, and against the loneliness that creeps in when the spotlight fades. And though the world still remembers her as a symbol of joy, the truth behind her smile is far darker. Goldie Hawn's life has always been a contradiction. She was the woman who made millions laugh while hiding her own tears. She was the golden girl of Hollywood while privately carrying wounds no one could see. She lived a love story that looked like a fairy tale, while quietly nursing heartbreak from broken marriages and fractured family ties. At 79, her story isn't just about fame, it's about survival. She survived an industry that tried to box her in, men who betrayed her whispers that tried to destroy her, and the unrelenting passage of time that stripped away her spotlight. And yet, despite it all, she remains. Her legacy is more than the Oscar on her shelf, more than the box office hits, more than the magazine covers that once couldn't get enough of her. Her legacy is the laughter she gave the world, the joy she brought into living rooms, the characters who still sparkle decades later, even as Hollywood turned its back. Fans never truly did. To millions, Goldie Hawn will always be the woman who could light up even the darkest day. But the tragedy is undeniable. Behind the fame and glamour lies a woman who has often felt forgotten, betrayed, and left to carry her pain in silence. A woman who gave so much of herself to her craft, her lovers, her children, and yet found herself battling loneliness and fading health as the years crept in. In the end, Goldie Hawn's story is a reminder of a cruel truth. Even those who shine the brightest cannot escape the shadows. And perhaps that is what makes her tragedy cut so deeply. Because if even America's golden girl can be broken, then no one is truly untouchable. As fans, we remember the laughter. We remember the sparkle. But behind it all, at 79 years old, the tragedy of Goldie Hawn is beyond heartbreaking. And maybe, just maybe, that's the part of her story the world was never meant to. Till then, subscribe to Vintage Spotlight for such more Hollywood Uncover.